So now let's come to the sugar parts. Why it's interesting to work with React even as a front-end developer and even in simple applications sometimes. As you see, there are repeating components. For example, these speakers. All of them got the same markup, only the content differs. It's the same with our guest speakers. All of them, wait, let me show you with the images so it's nicer to look at. All of our guest speakers get the same markup. Again, only the content differs. So like the image, the name, the topic, and the time. So within React, we only need one component for all of those speakers. So let's find these repetitive parts that we export to a component. And that's it. The list item is the one that repeats itself. So let's copy it to build a new component. When we create a new component, we normally start by importing React from React. Now we save this as a JS file. Maybe you ask yourself why sometimes I just import React as a name and sometimes I use a relative path like /. The / says this is a component that I created and it is within my source file or whatever I pointed to. If I don't use this, just importing React means this is an installed component, either by npm, yarn, or whatever package management you're using. So let's start with creating our component. This is always done by class, the class's name, and then extends React component and curly braces. This code is always the same, you don't have to remember it, you can copy and paste it. Then we export our component by export default and the component's name. So next we add our render function and our return statement. You don't have to remember all of this code. I will put it somewhere beneath the video so you can just copy and paste it and exchange the name. Because the basis of every component looks the same. The only thing that is changing is the name. So take this one, exchange your name, and you're ready to go. You remembered the code we copied, now is the time to paste it in. This component is ready for the moment, so let's just save it, go to our app and import it there. We do this again by import speaker list from same folder speaker list. After saving this, we scroll down to where we want to use our new component. So we highlight this and replace it by the newly created component. This is speaker list, yeah, with the closing tag. Save it and look, yeah, nothing changed. So the component works. To actually see that our component is working, let's add the image now by require source and Walter White. So as you see, our component is working great. But still our component got hard-coded content. We want this one component to render all of our guest speakers. So how do we do this? What we want to do is replace those informations by props. Props is a concept where the parent gives information or content to its children. So within our parent, we want to define the name, the topic, and everything else as props and pass it to the child. Each time you render a component, you can decide which props you give it. So in this case, we want to give it a prop name, and this name is Walter White. The image is also walter-white.png, so the name of the file. The topic is a bit longer, so we just copy it from here. So we paste it here, and then set our time to 11. So all we defined here are the props that we give to the child. So now what we want to do is replace our static HTML by these props. So we get rid of Walter White, and since we want to input code, we have to wrap it in curly braces. So now what we want to use is this.props, because the props we are given, and also the name of those props, because there we defined the name as Walter White. Save it and try it. Yeah, it is working great. The next thing we want is the topic. So it's this.props.topic. And the time is this.props.time. And we can add plus PM. Since when we have a look at our speakers, the time is always PM. So we don't have to write it all the time. We just write a number and the PM will be added. My next solution is a bit adventurous, I'd say. So we want to replace the image again. So we look for the thing that stays. This is require and the image folder. And the thing that is changing is just the image name. So we can write plus this.props.image. This works here, but I wouldn't recommend to use this in production because it's a bit adventurous to require something that is not yet given when the code is rendered. Instead, you could import all of your images as variables and then add this variable. I just made it this way so you better understand how to use the props. Since it's not nice to read always this.props.name, this.props.topic, and so on, we can just define a variable and say the variable's name, image, topic, and time equal this.props. So then we can get rid of this.props and just leave the names. So save it, and there's a mistake. Oh yeah, I wrote t time. Forgot to get rid of the t, and it works great. So now let's see what this all was good for. So I add an additional speaker. I just have to duplicate the whole component and exchange the props. So now the name is Mother Teresa. The image also is Mother Teresa. The topic is what we copy from here. And the time is 12 o'clock. We have a look. And it's working great. Since I guess you guys don't want to see me copy and paste all of this code, I just do it and fast forward. And the speaker list is working great. We have a look here, and it's just done by our components. And as you see, it is much easier to read. We don't have all of this repeating markup. We just have the informations that we need to render. So you can do this with a lot of stuff. For example, those speakers, maybe even the contact form, especially the footer that always stays the same. This is all a great example to use components. So in the next step, we see that even the speaker list is repetitive. So we always write the same thing, just exchange our props. So there's another way that we just map a component for each element that is given. But this will be part of the next tutorial. So I really hope you enjoyed this and you have a good overlook over React, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.